Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And well, for this week we have the Amarr celebrations that are starting. We also got a trailer for the Amarr Empire. Alright, pretty cool. Obviously feels a little bit underwhelming after the amazing video that we got about Minmatar. So maybe they should have switched the order around because right now it does make it all feel, if you followed along, it makes it feel like, well, the Amarr are a little bit of pompous bastards. But still pretty cool, and I like the in-game celebration on this one. If you go to Amarr, if you haven't already, definitely should take a look at the fleet there, the Golden Fleet. It looks absolutely amazing. But of course we've got the Empires, and then we've got Nullsec, which is the Capsuleers of course, and there we've got the war sorta ending or going into a next phase, as the coalition of Papi is stopping their assault, their exterminatus of the Imperium, and well, those guys are now out for revenge, of course, which is well, gonna be very interesting, I think, both for Nullsec but for the game as a whole. Made a video about it, giving you guys my thoughts on the war from a sideline, a neutral Care Bear perspective. But overall, yeah, it is really cool. I don't think that there's another game out there that has warfare to this scale and complexity, and so very cool to see that this is you know, still churning along, and that it actually, in my opinion, is causing some grudges that will stick around for quite a while, which could be very good for conflict. Anyways, I think we're good to go and take a quick look at the New Eden store, see what's happening over here. We have, let's see here, some bundles. Oh, a sale happening. 1 month Omega plus some Amarr free skins. So if you happen to want to spend 500 plex for a month Omega, you can get some free extra Amarr skins from that. And other than that, well, nothing too special, but yeah, a sale is always nice. And then in the services, we have the same sale that is being announced right here. So 1 month Omega plus some free skins. Let's see if we can see what we get. Oh, all right, it's an Apocalypse skin. And then we've got the Coercer skin. That looks quite alright. Harbinger Khanid skin. A Khanid skin is very cool. Look at that black, silver. Very nice. And then Omen Tashmir Khan skin. Alright, red, bloody red. Very cool. Very nice. So maybe just the Apocalypse skin doesn't feel that special. But there you go. That is the sale happening at the moment. And then we'll go in next for the market, of course. Let's go. Market up. Plex and stuff coming in at 310. Like that. And so you may see on the ticker Plex going down just a little bit in absolute price, but we are still hitting that 2.7 million quite comfortably for the sellers, and 2.6 million for the buyers in GTA 4.4. And then the big change, of course, which quite a few people are mentioning as a potential or at least partial catalyst of what's been happening in the war, is that the Tranquility Trading Tower is no longer completely dominating certain trades like Plex, like injectors, extractors and things like that. So because of the tax changes, that is no longer competitive compared to GTA 4.4, or certainly doesn't have a big advantage tax-wise compared to GTA 4.4, and as a result it now has to compete with it, which I think just for ease of access, everything is in GTA 4.4, so everyone does tend to gravitate there for trade anyways. And then it's an NPC station, although that Keepstar won't go down anytime soon. It could always happen. This is EVE after all, and so I personally do prefer to do my trading in GTA 4.4 itself. If you look at the price history, you can see that we bounced up against the 2.7 million mark, and then the averages are going down just a little bit just below that, but haven't seen the crossing of the 20-day moving average by the 5-day moving average just yet. So clearly the market doesn't really know where to go. And then of course tax changes with increased volumes of trading is always very nice to see. For the multiple pilot training certificate, we've got quite a little bit of volatility. We actually went down to like 1.25 billion from almost 1.4, and now we are back up over there to 1.35 billion for most sellers. There's still one seller here for just above 1.3 billion. Buyers are above 1.2 billion. Now, much smaller market, but here's the big difference, right? Before we had the Tranquility Trading Tower at the top, now it's actually at the bottom. All action is happening in JITA once again, and here again quite a bit more volumes and a bit more volatility in those volumes as well, causing this volatility in the price. So this is definitely true as well. Lower taxes, more volatility, more volumes, providing you with better opportunities for actively trading, of course. Next up, we've got the skill extractors following plex quite closely, but here there's a little bit of a difference. You can see here 5-day moving average at least meeting the 20-day moving average and not willing to go above 310 million ISK. 306.5 for the sellers, 297 million, very narrow margin here, 298 in fact for the first buyer. Again, a little bit of Tranquility Trading Tower stuff still happening, but most of the trades are still happening in JITA 4.4. Maybe it's some people that just haven't noticed the tax changes just yet, or that happen to have these items within the Tranquility Trading Tower and the Trading Hub and are just willing to sell them right there. But yeah, 310 million mostly in JITA, and so this is that same bounce up against these high prices that we are seeing in plex as well, and again with the higher volumes. Then the impact on the skill injectors, large skill injectors going back up a little bit for the week, still 5-day moving average below 20-day moving average, so it's not certain that we are going to break out to like a 630 or something like that again. We are talking about 624 million for the sellers and 595 for the buyers, so much larger margin. I feel like with the skill extractors, this is super narrow, just 6-7 million. All right, it's a different category of price, but going below 600 million for the buyers and well above that for the sellers does indicate to me that there's like still a little bit of room for speculation, but 630, no, there's too much selling pressure happening to really reach that at the moment. Still again, here the volumes have been up for a week, which is good news, I think. Then for the small skill injectors, we have still that difference in pattern, very interesting. Although the volumes are up, we now have basically a slow move down for the small skill injectors, landing on 130 million, where the 5-day moving average and the 20-day moving average actually meet. So more hesitation in the market as to where we want to go next. 125 million for the sellers and 117 million for the buyers. Yeah, well below 120 and then well above 120. So I would say here again, the market is currently hesitating quite a little bit as to what to do with the small scale injectors, and apparently we got a little bit of selling pressure that's coming in as well, considering the chart meeting at 130 and now the sellers at 125 down here. So we're definitely not certain that inflation is gonna take hold or anything like that, and that we're up into higher prices. We're seeing a little bit of dumping happening as well here and there. For the daily alpha injectors, although last week we managed to get back above 40 million, now we are just below 40 million for the average price, 40 million for the sellers, 37 for the buyers. That's less than 10% in margin. That's quite decent. And here, right, you do have the market saying, yeah, we're probably gonna stick below 40 million for a little bit, since the first sellers are below that price point and those buyers are just below that as well. So again, here feeling a narrowing of the margin and the average price just below 40. Which is still quite okay. This is not like a complete crash of the item or anything like that either. Tiny little volume bump, but this actually goes back to the regular pretty easily or pretty quickly. My read on that, yeah, the daily alpha injector has this alpha clone niche. They don't really have that big of, I would say, the taxes don't have that big of an impact on alpha clone players. You know, where it really starts to make a big difference is probably for larger entities, bigger traders, very active traders. If you're an alpha player that, you know, wants to use these daily alpha injectors, you are going to play towards that 40 million, earn it, buy it, use it, and then try to do the same thing on the next day that you're playing EVE Online, making for a more steady volume situation. I think that's not impacted that greatly by the tax changes. And then finally, we've got the hypercore that also is showing a more hesitation, less certainty that we are into an inflationary spiral as we slowly edge back down to 280,000, which is still okay on the full chart, but the first sellers again coming in at 275, 277, so a little bit below 280, and then 270,000 for the buyers, narrowing of the margin, a little bit of downwards pressure, and prices currently already below the 280,000 mark. Here we do have a little bit of a volume increase that has grown and taken hold as well. So overall here, a little bit more active trading, but also a little bit of like dumping, hesitation that higher prices are really the way to go forward for plex and stuff. Let's move on to the minerals at 10.55. As always, we start with titanium in high sec. That, well, when I was making the video about the war ending, we had a little bit of a bump above the 20-day moving average that was happening, but it's been squashed very quickly, and we are currently seeing a little bit of pressure on titanium. 435 for the sellers, 427 for the buyers. This is a little bit of sell pressure again, just like with plex and stuff. Couple of sellers coming in with some decent volumes, competing us down from 450 to that 435 in not that many sell orders. So this is probably absorbable, but it does show that the uptick was not really maintained, but it in fact, even this small uptick down here was enough to bring some suppliers to the market and to quickly take advantage of those slightly higher prices. So it really does look like anything above 4.5 is considered really a good opportunity for a lot of sellers, and once we go below 4.5 we can expect supply to slow down a little bit and us to recover back towards that point. So that's my read on this sudden move. Then we've got pyrite, same wavy pattern right here, and again a little bit of a downwards push at the tail end back below the 20-day moving average. We're still talking 18 ISK for the sellers and 17.30 for the buyers. I think this is the exact same thing. Once you get closer and closer to 19, 19.5 and 20, yeah, there's just sellers coming in, and then they're a little bit of aggressive, bringing the price down very quickly towards 18 round, or even just below that apparently in the Tranquility Trading Tower. Maybe there's even a little bit of like evac selling happening there. Who knows what the future is for the TTT, and so a little bit of a downwards push that I think will easily be absorbed by the market. We'll see in the upcoming weeks, of course. Then we've got Mexalon that actually is managing to continue that slight upward trend. 5-day moving average staying above 20-day moving average, not by much, but a slight uptick. So if we go for JITA itself then, because now we do have, well, again, quite a little bit of selling in the Tranquility Trading Tower in the last couple of days going on, very much competing and undercutting JITA 4.4, going for 60 ISK and below. But in JITA itself, we're at 66 for the sellers and then 59 almost for the buyers. I think here, yeah, increased volumes or have also been the case at least over these last 10 days or so. Mexalon is needed in nullsec, so if the industry there starts is at least, you know, thinking about starting again a rebuilding effort, maybe just by the Imperium, but in all likeliness on all sides that will have to establish themselves in their new places of and the new capitals. It's going to be interesting to see if Mexalon is once again the one that will move up the most. This has been the experience. It's the one high-sec mineral that's actually been able to maintain most of its value throughout the whole resource bonanza thing. So it took a very nice bonus, big up margin to like 100 and even 125 ISK during the height of the resource crunch that CCP organized. And then of course we got the 200 ISK on the industry rush. and now, I mean, we're back well below 75, which I would put at the average, but I think it could be the first one to really recover once industry starts to pick up in nullsec. Then we've got Isogen that did a little bit of a jump right here. It's not super visible, but it's higher volume, so big purchases actually went up to 70 ISK, but it's probably gonna be some, yeah, there we go. This is what I was looking for, some more old stocks. It's still suffering from that just a little bit, so pushing the price back down to 60 and well below 60 very quickly, and we still have a couple of like 20 million, 62 million here, and then obviously all these 10s and 15s, also some pretty sizable stocks that are slowly finding their way into the market, but it's also that difference that I've been talking about compared to like 10 months ago or so, where you still have billions of units coming on the market in a single order. Here they're a little bit more careful. I think whoever is holding Isogen at this point is a bit more aware of its potential, and that the active supply is way lower than I think a price of less than 60 ISK would indicate. But you have to still go through all of these reserves, of course, and this could be a part of the reason why CCP is saying Q4 is when we will officially end scarcity in EVE Online, because they're also seeing that there's still a lot of Isogen out there. And give us like another quarter or so, and then we should really have been able to go through most of these stocks, and we shouldn't see these disruptions with, well, hundreds of millions of units of Isogen finding their way to the market on any bump, really, even towards 70 ISK. But you never know with speculators, of course. Some of them might be holding on for an even longer time. And so we're back just below 60 ISK at the moment on some of that sell pressure right here, taking advantage of the higher prices that happen. So here you can see in just a couple of sell orders, we go from 70, 69, 64, 63, 62, 60. So this is in like half a page. That's very quick, and the volumes are, 10 million at 75, 10 million at 70, another 10 million right here at 5 million at 69, another 5 at 69, at 65, and then we go down to 64, 20 million, 62, 60 million. Yeah, these are old reserves, and they're just, competition there, trying to get rid of that Isogen at prices above 60, and then of course there is maybe some desperation or some too aggressive selling happening as well, in my opinion, pushing us back down to 59 ISK. Very interesting state though, and if you look at this, I would say we still have a little bit of old reserves out there that may need to be chewed through. Probably a different story than in Noxium. Yeah, that is continuing its ascent, and that to me is another indication that Isogen is in that state of old reserves that still have to be absorbed by the market, because this feels very much in line with what you would expect on a turnover in the war, changes in circumstances there, and a very likely need to build up from this point on from at least some parties. And so you've got increased volume, increased interest that also increases the price. Well, yeah, you mostly have to go to nullsec to grab Noxium, and so compared to last week, we're adding another 70 ISK from 1200 to 1270 for the sellers, 1200 for the buyers. Very aggressive, right? Those buyers are going up very quickly together with this price trend, and honestly, I'm expecting in the longer term that this dynamic is also going to happen in Isogen, but we again have to go through what is still left out there from the resource bonanza. It's clearly been the biggest victim as well from the resource availability, where it basically became a side product that just by focusing on other stuff, you would get so much Isogen that you would get way more than you would ever need. And so that's still the problem there. But yeah, Noxium and Isogen, in my opinion, should have similar dynamics, and that is still not the case. You can also again see with these very flat regions that hold on for a while. This is really something that's being kept in check by just all these volumes that are still out there, whereas Noxium has a much more flowing chart with a double top right here. Feels way more like this is an active supply demand chart that is responding to what happens in the universe way better than Isogen. Then we have our Nozick minerals. So here is Zydrine also picking up in volumes, picking up in price, heading back towards 1,000 ISK. Very nice, I would say. If you're looking for value, that's not a bad news. 973 for the sellers, 900 ISK for the buyers. So that's again a response, I would say, to the increased volumes, the tax changes, and then potentially also what's happening in Nozick. So there we go, feels quite nice. And then Megasite actually had a far more volatile response, but potentially to the changes on the taxes as well, but probably a little bit of speculation on what could be happening next from 6 to 700 ISK. And then you can see a little bit of hesitation right there, but that's normal. If you jump 100 ISK in a matter of days, there is bound to be a little bit of volatility out there. But now we're at 705 going to 750 on the first page, and that's just a couple million in Megasite. That's really not a lot. And then buyers are forced up to 675 for Megasite as well. So yeah, I'm seeing that valorization of minerals come back, and I would read this as anticipation on after the summer, and with the grudges that are holding in Nozick, and no like clear winner or anything like that happening there really. I mean, a lot of players are considering the Imperium to be the clear winner, but no side is like completely decimated or anything like that. This does mean that, you know, likeliness an arms race could be on the books, and that means that higher mineral prices are definitely possible. And our biggest exception, well, here Tritanium, a bit of an opportunity that was oversold. Same thing for Pyrite. And then for Isogen, yeah, my read, it's just not normal that you're still seeing these dozens and dozens of millions of units coming in single sell orders for something that you're getting from Nozick. Finally, we've got Morphite that is able to stay above 100,000 ISK, I believe. 102,000 for the sellers, 99,000 for the buyers. That's super low margin, so super high price for Morphite. That is, well, easily maintained at the moment because of just very strong demand in Tech 2. With Tech 2 not changing either from what CCP has told us, the only way that this could change for Morphite would be if availability would increase in the fourth quarter. And so that is my personal gamble, if you want to say. What I'm expecting is that we don't see increase in availability in stuff like Tritanium, Pyrite, etc. But for Morphite, that is possible that more sources will come online once CCP decides to increase resource availability in EVE Online. Let's move on to PI at 2210. Like that, and let's take a look at what's happening here. All right, this is again in line with, in my opinion, a market that expects increased production, increased needs for goods. Here is broadcast nodes. I think this is needed in like carriers and stuff, up to 2 million ISK here. Big uptick as well. Couple of sellers coming in at 1.85, but it's pretty obvious that everything was bought out not that long ago. Buyers forced up to 1.7 million as well, and those increased volumes. This is probably like the perfect storm, or in perhaps even a linked chain of events where CCP changed the taxes, so it became more attractive to do active trading. And then you've got TTT that, well, took a big hit, which then ended the war, which means that there's a lot of speculation happening on what are all of these raw resources actually worth. And so here you're getting that perfect storm for these much higher volumes and that volatility in the price. It's pretty cool to see, in my opinion. Then we've got our construction blocks. You can have same responses on the downside as well, going back from 7,000 down towards 6,000 this year. 6.5 for the first seller, 6.4 for the other seller. So then those that are massively oversupplied already could really suffer from downwards pressure on all of that increased trade activity as well, like here with construction blocks. Consumer electronics are, well, trying to crawl back a little bit from a bottom that was below 5,000 ISK. Very, very crazy low price. Manages to do so a little bit, but really no breakout or anything like that. Still way oversupplied. 5,600 for the sellers and 5.2 for the first buyers. And yeah, this is really everything that's being bought, and then this is everything that's being sold, including couple of jumps out This is really an oversupplied market. That's pretty obvious yet again. Then we've got our coolants doing a little bit better, going back up to 10k and now landing on 8,000 discs. This is not like less than half the price of its historical perspective like consumer electronics. This is like maybe 20% loss or something like that. 8.4 for the sellers, 8,000 discs for the buyers. Yeah, fuel related PI materials except for our robotics have been doing somewhat okay, I would say. And these are the ones that I personally sell as I produce them at the moment. Cryoprotectant solutions, more pressure. So if you want in on a gamble that the CCP will eventually come out with an implant set, buying low here makes a lot of sense. 95k for the sellers, 90k for the buyers. You're buying well below 100,000 disc. Honestly, not a bad proposition to slowly load up on these items. Then you've got enriched uranium tied to fuels. Unfortunately, that it does not look too good, right? Managed to get well above 10,000 disc, even spiked up to 12.5 for a couple of days, but now the pressure is back and we are back down to 8,000 for the sellers, 7,700 for the buyers. Integrity response drones, all right, a couple of volume spikes, but easily absorbed by the market, and still I would say 1.85 to almost 2 million for the sellers. That's not bad. Almost 1.7 million for the buyers as well, showing that yeah, this is another one of these advanced PI materials that has that increased market because of the industry changes. Mechanical parts trying to get back at to 7k, 7,120 and 7,000 for the buyers. Right, that's like a 30% loss to its historical average, I would say, but still better than a lot of the others. Nanites went down to 4,500, and here I do think some speculators came in as well, did a little bit of buying of the cheapest stuff. We're back to 4.9, buyers are at 4.7. Yeah, that's a little bit of, despite the super low demand, there is a bit of competition here to grab the cheapest nanites available. Nano factories, there we go, another sign that yeah, speculation is going into more industry, increased volumes, and the price gets pushed to 1 million for the sellers. And again, we were completely bought out, 1.5 million for the buyers. This is quite a difference, right? If you look at consumer electronics in supply demand, and then we go back to where were they? Nano factories to supply demand. That is obviously telling a very different story. Organic mortar applicators, taking a quick look here. Well, same story, not that bad. A couple of volumes that really were absorbed by the market, but eventually we are going back up in price here. 900,000 for the sellers, 635 for the buyers. Bit of margin opening up, but again, yeah, it's that speculation that more will be needed. Then recursive computing modules, sellers making their way above 1 million ISK, buyers following at 950k. That is not bad either. Then our robotics, a little bit of a jump, but just back to 60k, which is still like 40% below its normal price. That's still pretty terrible. Self-harmonizing power cores, yeah, this one not moving too much. And yet again, look at that availability going down, 1.75 million almost for the sellers and almost 1.6 million for the buyers, showing that difference in situation quite starkly. Advanced PI materials for sterile conduits here again, well above 1.2 million, and buyers forced up above 1 million as well. That should be a little bit of upward pressure there. Ukami superconductors tied to implants, so this one already had a little bit of a spike, so slight sell opportunity that is squashed very quickly. I think 80k for the sellers, 72k for the buyers. Yeah, no, there's still a bit of a sell opportunity here if you can. And then wetware mainframes, again, upwards pressure, 175, yeah, 1.7 million for one seller, almost 1.75 for most. So this is really the story, I would say, that confirms my speculation at least a little bit for minerals as well, that there is some market activity expecting higher prices, higher values for these raw materials. In all likeliness, more need of it in nullsec. Next up, advanced wood materials, 2850. There we go. Let's take a look at these. Crystalline carbonides have basically landed above 150. 160 for the sellers, 144 for the buyers. And so these last couple of months of very high peaks up to 225 and a massive premium to be paid for these carbides are over. It's now, I would say, a small premium over the normal price. Then we've got for Caldari titanium carbide, yeah, same story here again, right? In April, a jump up to 350 ISK for something that started here at around 150, and now we have slowly absorbed all of that, landing back, well, still a bit of a premium compared to the last year, but definitely in line with the range. 172 for the sellers, 169 for the buyers, showing very strong demand still for anything Caldari at the moment, but we're not in those crazy high price ranges anymore. Then we've got for Minmetar, it's Fernite carbide that is actually doing still a little bit of a jump, but yeah, start the year below 150 and now basically jumps up from 150. Same story, 160 to 152. So this is another one that is away from the peaks, but has a little bit of a premium from last year. And then we get tungsten carbide for Amar. That's actually right back on the average we started last year at. So again, double peak in April, going up to 300 ISK almost from 150. That's a pretty massive premium. Couple of months where we definitely pay a lot for tungsten carbide, but in the last 1.5 months or so, we have gone back down. 167 for the sellers, 160 for the buyers, and that's right back where we started at. So these are definitely normalizing, although we are paying a bit of a premium still in most of them. Then the metamaterials actually were overall pretty steady and average. So here is Galente photonic metamaterials diving back down a little bit, actually towards 11k. That's the buyers, dropping out a little bit, but still 12,400 for the sellers, right around that average, nothing too special. Then we've got non-linear for Caldari. Yeah, back at 20k, which is right, pretty much in line with the chart here as well. Honestly, the metamaterials have been surprisingly stable throughout all of this Tech 2 speculation, that massive Morphites peak, and some volatility that did come back in the Tech 2 ships. So then we've got plasmonic metamaterials for Minmetar, just below 20k. So this again, I mean, this is really going from 15k to 25k, and those are just a couple of volatile peaks. Everything else is nice and steady around 20k. This is a pretty nice and stable chart for a 1-year chart. And then for terahertz metamaterials for Amar, a little bit below average, you could even say right now, but again, very much in line with a normal price. The other advanced moon materials are still going down apparently for a lot of them. Fermionic condensates, pressure down below 60k, 61 almost for the sellers, but 56,000 for the buyers. So despite being super low on the chart, we're still seeing pressure. Then we've got ferrogel, right, hovering below 30k, not able to bounce back from that very close to 1-year low point. Fullerites still seeing pressure as well. I mean, that's just going to be the story here. I do think that this could be impacted by the war as well. And then if you're looking for more value, that's not going to be in advanced moon materials, because, if the war ends, in the sense that the efforts to completely eliminate the Imperium from nullsec ends, and then everyone goes back into more of a preparation mode, that also means that there's probably going to be more room to do moon mining, and that is just going to increase supply. So hypersynaptic fibers definitely still well below 10,000 ISK as well. Buyers, are they below 9k? No, 9.2, so a little bit of buying happening here as well, but clearly below average. Nanotransistors also flattening out just above 4k, so that's not too good. And then phenolic composites, all right, slight upwards pressure back to 1750, staying just above average here on the 1-year chart. And then ceramic fibers, here we are back in that normal price range, despite, just like some of these carbides, we have this premium that was held for almost 6 months, and I think phenolic composites had that as well. Climbed above 1750, went above 2k, but is starting to give back a lot of that ground. Yeah, for advanced moon mats, well, we have to be honest, if there's like less active engagements or clear targets that are being hunted by like super large coalitions within nullsec, they're going back to some moon mining as well. That should put pressure on this category. And you know, it's being shown as well, even in some of the other materials needed in Tech 2 ships, which is what's coming next. 3410 Tech 2 ships. Let's see if we've got some opportunities then. Here is the Basilisk showing a little bit of pressure. Now, I will of course quickly mention this, that at this point, I'm not looking to do too many quick trades. If I see an opportunity, great, but I will be looking for the best bargains, because we have seen just in advanced materials all the carbides normalizing as well, metamaterials in normal prices. So I would say that now you could be in for a period of time also on lower activity throughout the summer, and then, you know, less, I'm gonna say, massive fleet engagements to be expected in nullsec for now at least. But there's still gonna be quite a bit of stuff happening there, but still not in the same vein. That I don't expect, you know, big huge spikes like that to happen too quickly, but in the longer term, again, if in general we get more need for raw materials, increased prices for then Tech 2 stuff and things like that, then getting the right investments now in Tech 2 can be a nice medium to longer range investment, and that's mostly what I'll be looking to do. And so the stuff that I'm holding on to, I've changed that from looking to quickly do turnovers and get maybe 15, sometimes 30 million in profit, to looking at these as longer term investments that perhaps like after the summer, winter time or something like that, we'll be looking for actual peaks. So here, Basilisk, starting to see some pressure. Data points at 200 million. We are talking about 222 for the sellers and 200 million for the buyers. Not a lot of buyers supply-wise last 24 hours, almost half a page here as well. If this can continue for a little bit more, if we can knock out a couple more of these buyers and try to grab one below 190, for instance. Quick look at completed trades. I did a trade on 200 million. You could say, well, why don't you jump back in now? Well, I'm actually expecting, considering advanced movements, that we could get even better bargains, but that we'll have to hold on to them for a longer period of time. And so Basilisk, I'd say I'm gonna wait a little bit more. If I can buy below 190, then I'm definitely starting to buy and looking at it as an investment. Cerberus also starting to see that little bit of pressure, but still nowhere near the bottom prices on the chart. 244 for the sellers, 231 for the buyers. Same thing. Look at the supply last 24 hours. That's a full front page still of Cerberi coming in, despite that we really haven't broken out to like the 300 million range or anything like that. So that's pressure that's starting to mount. But again, I'm gonna be patient and look for the very best longer term investments. Guardian breaking down well below 200 million, but again, look at the 1 year chart. I'd need to see it like probably below 180. We're still just above that. This is interesting already. Honestly, buy as close as possible to 180. Sellers are coming in at 200 million. We're in the downwards pressure right here, although it is also already starting to end. Yeah, this would make sense if you can like grab a Guardian below 185. I don't think that that's a bad purchase. That could be something to look into. Then we've got the Hound, definitely some volatility and the pressure is mounting, but can we break really through that 25 million mark? Well, look at that, demand is not there, supply, that's still, man, that's a lot for the last 24 hours. Bring the sell price down to 26 million and then 23 million for the buyers. That's the real question. Can we expect the bottom to drop out of all of this as well potentially, or should we now try to buy as close to 23 million as possible and then see that as our jumping point? That's really you know, what we have to be careful for. I would say, yeah, a couple of Hounds, but make sure that you buy like half of what you would normally do, so that if the bottom drops out, you can actually jump back in at the real bottom. Then we get a Nikki Tursa, flat, still below 700 for the sellers and 641 million for the buyers. All right, quick Triglavian barometer here, looking decently stable, but still obviously very expensive. The Ishtar is doing another step down. This to me is really reading as hesitation and potentially a real buy opportunity showing up in a little bit, because you can see here we went down very quickly to this range. We're testing this again, but on a double step down. So and here at the tail end we're still trying to go back down a little bit more. And yeah, look at that, buyers. Let's take a quick look at it with this. This is all the buyers for the Ishtar. Unfortunately, a couple of them are still going for 200 million. Drop these two out, buy close to 190. If you look at 190 on the chart, that's somewhere down here. That's starting to look competitive with the 1-year bottom. So I'd say, yeah, again, it's the same thing. Supply is still very strong, more than a full front page here for the Ishtar. So it's a difficult decision. Buying at 200 million could be the right time, but potentially a little bit more patience could get us a buy at 190. That would of course be a lot better. Manticore got back to 30, but is feeling the pressure yet again. First seller coming in at 27, most at 30 million, and still 26 for the buyers. Yeah, that's definitely, and you can also see way more buyers here. To me, that's too early. Then we get the Munin, nice little spike to 250, very quickly absorbed by the market. 200 for the sellers, 185 for the buyers. Yeah, volumes here unfortunately not high enough for me to really say I'm gonna invest unless we're below 180. Then we get the Nemesis still holding that 25 million. So that's the bad news, right? Margin only 3 million is, that's not great. 25.5 for the sellers, 22.5 for the buyers. Once you get a little bit of demand, it closes the gap very quickly. And here you don't have that oversupply situation. So the Nemesis is not yet building an opportunity. On Nero's seeing a little bit of pressure. Buyers are at 164. Okay, again, be careful with the volumes, not traded that often. Panther, I'd say that this is pretty nice. Obviously, this is also a CCP spike right here. Decently quickly absorbed by the market, and we're basically where we started the year at for the average prices. 1.2 billion for the first seller though, and 5 of them here, and then 1.1 billion for the buyers. Yeah, no signs of real deflation, so it's really a demand supply situation. Production cost wise, we're still, you know, pretty okay, I would say. Then the Purifier, 25 to 30, bouncing back down. Sellers 28 to 24, 23 here, 22 here, 21 here. And supply wise, last 24 hours, not that much. Yeah, this is not where I'd want to buy on the chart. I'd have a little bit patience again. Scimitar showing pressure again, but can we really break through this bottom again? That's the real question. 203 million for the sellers, 192, so that's again not enough spread. The Widow breaking down a little bit more as well. 1.15 billion for the sellers, still above a billion for the buyers. And then the Zealot is crashing back down decently quickly as well. Don't like the volumes, so I'd need to see a very nice buy opportunity. 185 for the buyers. Yeah, we can test 180 in my opinion if my prediction comes true on Take-Two ships. I fully admit that it's a gamble. It's a gamble on lower activity, but supply is already catching up there and really crashing that market even more than what we've been doing. Clearly, you can see downwards pressure in almost all of these Take-Two ships. But the real question for me is, does this have more momentum so that we can really buy those investments? And then I'm not looking at those as trades that I want to like hopefully turn around in a week or so, but no, as something to hold on to for the longer term, to maybe this winter turn them over at like a real peak price. Potentially, I think it could happen. I could be wrong on that as well. You know, I made gambles like that in PI as well that really haven't paid off, so be careful with what I say, of course. Then, all right, I'll quickly take a look at the holdings. Since most of that is Take-Two anyway. So here's the Confessor, bought in at 34, selling for 37. Yeah, that's a difficult choice. It is Take-3 as well, not Take-Two, so I may actually turn that into a profit. But that's not bad, right? I think after taxes, I could have like a 10 million profit on this one. With a buy-in of 35, that's not bad. Endurance also starting to be up here. So that's not bad either. Bought below 20, can sell for 24. There's definitely a bit of profit in that one. Manticore, still no profit if you look at this seller. Then we get the Oneros. Yeah, I bought one at 165. We're at 164, so here I basically have my investment. I'm probably gonna hold on for a real peak in the Oneros. And then we've got the Prospect that last week went up above 25, is back down to 23. No real profits to be had here, but again, I'm willing to be patient in Take-Two, but I may make the Confessor trade happen. Which brings us nicely to the Tech 3 ships for this week at 43.55. Like that. So let's get started. We just saw the confessor really breaking out a little bit, 5-day moving average taking off away from the 20-day moving average, going to 47 million. And I do think that this was room that the confessor had to grow compared to like the Hecate, which is also going up to 50 million ISK here, 50 for the sellers, 45 for the buyers. Availability is going down substantially. Then we've got the Jackdaw that went up to well above 45. Yeah, this gives that confessor the room as well. 47 for the sellers, 42 for the buyers. Bit better availability, but clearly a nice little upswing for these Tech 3 cruisers. Yeah, I'm gonna do my sell here. I'm going to try and take my profit in the confessor. And then the Zwepel also stopping its descent and going back to 45 million. Almost 47 again for the sellers and 40 million for the buyers. So the destroyers have basically absorbed this downward pressure that was visible here through June, July on all of them, and have normalized to 47 and 50 million all of a sudden, more quickly than I expected. And so I do have a nice opportunity for me to sell to sell my investment for the confessor at a nice profit, and then from here that's difficult to say honestly, because same thing as with the Tech 2 ships, what's the interest in these tactical destroyers going to be now compared to potential supply. I do think Tech 3 supply coming from Wormhole space should be a little bit more stable, but these higher prices across the board for the destroyers could definitely bring in some interest. And so if you need to sell like me, I think you want to do it quickly, because we could see supply crashing everything back down as everything just rose up in a matter of maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So we will see though if that supply does materialize. Then we've got the cruisers, and that may actually be a little bit of a reason. I hadn't thought about that, but that could make sense, that with the changes to cruisers that you don't have a penalty in skill points anymore if the hull blows up. This could have driven quite a bit of production from Tech 3 potentially into the cruisers, giving these destroyers that upswing, and then it could be more material and more stable, because now the Legion still has a nice premium, is basically flat for the last 10 days or so, but at 195 almost to the sellers, 185 for the buyers. The Loki is flat at a very high price point, 223 for the sellers, 215 for the buyers. And then we get the Proteus. A little bit of pressure on the Proteus, like Clean is the least popular one, 181 for the sellers, 177 for the buyers, but it's still way better than the start of the year. And then the Tengu is doing great, building 1, 2, 3 steps up to a 1-year high point of 280. It's recovering from that, but it's still 240 million for the sellers, 221 for the buyers. And obviously this does make it a lot more interesting to sink production potential into cruisers at this point. To buy is not a great time, obviously, for the cruisers, but this is maybe what has given the destroyers that bit of breathing room, and does that price increase towards 50 million across the board for the sellers. And then of course my confessor at 35 million, which I bought, I think it was 30, yeah, it must have been down here somewhere right at the start of the downtrend. Does look pretty damn good. And then finally we still have the extra products, and someone requested isotopes, so we are going to look at ice products coming in at 48 minutes. There we go, and that means we go to manufacturing materials, not components, ice products, and let's get started. Here is heavy water, basically back where we started the year at, a bit of an April bump. That's of course the industry increase, but we have recovered from that and we are back below 75 for heavy water. Yep, 70 for the sellers, 70 for the buyers pretty much. Then helium isotopes, yes, that's very nice. Super increased volumes, high price to 1500, probably evacuation as well. I think that a lot of capitals and supers need fuel to do their jumps and things like that as well. So this is a pretty nice 1 year chart from 750 up to 1500, and this is, at least the comment mentioned, that this is an indication that there's still stuff happening in nullsec, right? This does mean that fuel is being used quite massively, and that they're willing to pay that massive premium all of a sudden. So there's definitely still stuff happening out there at the moment. 1500 for one seller, 1664 for the next one. So very sharp increase in price for helium isotopes. Hydrogen isotope, same thing. Look at that massive volume, almost 3000 disk here on the data points. 2750 for the sellers, 2300 for the buyers. Now, to me, this is like a sell opportunity as well if you happen to still be holding on some of these isotopes. And I think, and this is what's of course so beautiful about EVE Online, I mean, we can speculate on that, but I would not be surprised that the Imperium wallets are behind this as well. If you know that your enemy needs a lot of fuel to evac, well, then it's time to dump some ISK into there to make them pay an even higher price. And yeah, 2750 for hydrogen isotopes, which started there at 500 ISK. That's quite a steep increase, and I've done that in a couple of days. There must have been some enemy ISK flowing into that market as well, I think, and that's all part of the warfare, of course. Then we've got liquid ozone staying above 300 ISK, not that bad. 320 for the sellers, 292 for the buyers. So definitely a premium on that one. Nitrogen isotopes, there's the volumes as well. Here again a little bit more muted, but 2500 ISK now for the sellers. That really breaks out well above the chart. And then we've got oxygen isotopes, also 2.5 on the chart, 2.8, almost 3000 ISK here for the sellers. And then we've got strontium, that's still very expensive at the moment as well, on this 1 year chart, over double the initial price at 6800 ISK almost. Yeah, these isotopes are a tremendous opportunity if you have some of them lying around. I'd have to do a search, maybe, yeah, actually maybe I still have some somewhere. This is a massive sell opportunity, and this is, in my opinion, for those that are not in the war profiteering, and for those that are in the war, this is part of the warfare. This is part of what happens there when two sides want to make it as hard as possible for the other and as expensive as possible to do what they want to do. You get stuff like this, which is pretty crazy. Some of these isotopes are going towards 3000 ISK, which is pretty much 5 times the price that they started a year ago at. So very good suggestion, thank you very much for that. And yeah, this is the impact that a big nullsec war can have on the markets, and I think this one will have lingering waves that'll still ripple through the economy for quite a while. And that's it for this EVE Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and as always, I'll see you next time.